So I'm Josh. I went to Tenbury High Ormiston Academy. I'm studying politics, English literature and modern history. I decided to study English literature at Hereford sixth form because I've always had an interest in reading and literature, and it's something I enjoyed throughout my GCSE studies, so this just seemed like the natural progression of exploring those interests and gaining more skills in that field. One of the main ways college differs from school is you have a lot more freedom over how you use your time. And this can be really exciting at first, but you soon have to learn to use that time responsibly, and you have to work your studies around that time. And so that's a really useful skill because you have to learn to hold yourself responsible. The thing I like best about English literature is probably the in-class discussion, because it's something you really don't get an opportunity to do much at GCSE level, whereas at A level you can bring in your own perspectives on the text and you can compare that to other people, and you can come to some really sophisticated conclusions on what you study because you have more of that group interaction. The topic I've found most interesting in English literature is the Chaucer element of our poetry studies, because at first it seems really challenging because it's in Old English, but it's super interesting to decipher it and learn the history behind it and the context behind it, and all of a sudden this language, which seems completely foreign when you start, is completely transparent, and you know all of the history and everything behind it, and it's really exciting to go on almost that journey of discovering the text. In terms of enrichment activities, in first year I took part in the Creative Writing Society. I found that really enjoyable because it's an element of English literature which perhaps you don't get to explore too much in the lessons. So for people that want to really sort of stretch their creative writing muscles, it's a really good outlet for that you might not find in the lesson. I also take part in the Debate Society, which is fantastic because it covers so many different topics which we as the students get to decide upon what we debate. And so that crosses over into English literature quite often, because often you're discussing elements which relate to literature historically, or political elements which perhaps inspired the writers of the text and things like that. But it's also fantastic because it's essay writing, it's argument building, it's public speaking, all of which play into English literature, but particularly that argument building is so important for English literature, and so being able to work on that skill competitively is really, really good. The atmosphere at Hereford sixth form college is really relaxed, especially when compared to school, because you've got your own time and you're no longer in school uniform, you're in your own clothes. But it's also a lot more professional than school. Your relationships are a lot more like a relationship you'd have with a colleague rather than with a teacher or a superior. But nevertheless, you always feel that support that you have in school is still accessible if you want it, but you do have a lot more space to be independent and to conduct yourself as you'd like. The advice that I'd give to someone who's looking at taking A-level English literature is, once you get to the course, not to be afraid to ask for help, because the jump from GCSE to A-level can be daunting, especially as you go on with the course, because the texts are a lot more sophisticated and your answers have to be a lot more complex. But I found that the tutors are always on hand to give you the assistance when you need it, and the only scary thing is making that decision to ask for help, because once you ask, they are fantastic. I found that the tutors are really, really good at giving support and at propping you up, especially when it comes to coursework, which is the most sophisticated work that you'll have to do as part of the course. They're always on hand and willing to give really, really helpful advice. I've found the college's resources and facilities really, really useful, especially as I'm coming to the end of my course and approaching my exams. The library is full of really useful in-depth revision guides which help give my revision a lot more structure and just gives me a bit more support where I need it. And the virtual learning environment, which is available to all of the students, is really useful because you've got resources and texts available to you online, so on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, and this body of resources has been building up probably over the last 10 years, if not longer. And so you've got resources not only made by your current tutors, but past students and past tutors as well, which you can draw upon to refine your own skills and your own knowledge. Something that's been particularly important to me during my time in Hereford Sixth Form College is undertaking my EPQ, an extended project qualification. For my EPQ, I decided to make a documentary on a local folklorist called Ella Mary Leather. And this has been an amazing experience for me because it's allowed me to produce a really big piece of work which is entirely under my control. It's my independent piece of work, and I've never had the platform to do that in school. And that's allowed me to pursue so many new interests. I found a new interest in the Herefordshire folklore and the Herefordshire folk scene, in Morris dancing, in folk storytelling, all these new interests which I never knew existed right under my nose. But it's also allowed me to take my creative skills in new directions as well. I'd never produced a documentary before, but from my EPQ, I've got that documentary filmed in screened in a local cinema. It's been viewed by people in the local museum service who've reached out to me. So yeah, that's been a really enriching part of my college experience.